Marge Potasic was searching for the purpose of her life and the truth that would tie everything together to make sense of what was taught and what was happening on our planet, the fire that was creating all the smoke. Through many experiences, she was finally led to the knowledge book that provided all the answers. She is now talking about this gift to humanity on Knowledge Book Radio, so all can be united in peace, love, and harmony. Please call 1-973-787-7035 or email mmjp99@gmail.com with questions. If you send your postal address to mmjp99@gmail.com, you will receive 3 chapters of the Knowledge Book as a gift. Now, here is your host, Marge Potasic.
Hello, everyone. I'm Marge Potasic, and you're listening to the Knowledge Book Radio with Marge Potasic on Transformation Talk Radio. And as we've been doing for a while, I'll be covering some topic from the Knowledge Book this week, and every 4th Tuesday of the month at 7 p.m. New York time or East Coast time, and 4 p.m. Seattle time or Pacific time. But before I go into the talk, I would like to give you an explanation as to what these talks are about. When you see on the screen, there is a symbol, Call to Friendship Association World Unification Program Omega Conference Series. So the Call to Friendship Association was started back in 2017 as another arm of the World Unification Program. Now, we've been going through, as humanity, a training program for a very long time. And the latest programs came in, and we're just about finished in 2000, the 6,000-year program of religious training. This was the micro training of the going from the micro program to the macro program. And the Call to Friendship Association is actually a unification of macro consciousnesses. The center of the unification of this world planet and the distribution of the energies to the world comes through the Alpha channel, which is now focused over Anatolian Turkey. So this is the source of all the knowledge that we received up until this point. This is the distribution point of all the knowledge that is coming in now for us and for our training and for unifying humanity in peace and brotherhood. So all along, we've been getting messages of peace, unification, forgiveness, helpfulness, caring for others, caring for ourselves. And a lot of people have got to the point where they have internalized these teachings. And those are the individuals that basically will become ready for the knowledge book. And then the knowledge book comes in and takes those energies at whatever dimension they are currently in and trains them in an accelerated fashion to go from the alpha dimension to the omega dimension. And the alpha dimension is the dimension of love. The omega dimension is the unification dimension, and this is where all the energies are coming from. So all of us will eventually be unified in the omega dimension in the union of central suns. So this Call to Friendship Association, basically, there are people who are giving conferences every month. So every month a topic is chosen, and we somehow present that topic that is a world topic, world knowledge topic, and connect it to the universal dimension, connected to Omega. So basically what we're doing is unifying world knowledge, third dimension knowledge to the Omega dimension at the union of central suns. So this is the purpose of these talks. During the time that the talks are given, there are special energies that are coming to the planet. So this is part of what we're doing. So this month, before I go into the talk, I would like to give you some contact information. So to get contact with me by phone, it's 973-787-7035. My phone number. Then my email address is mmjp99@gmail.com. That's mmjp99@gmail.com. The United States World Brotherhood Union website is www.usa.theknowledgebook.net. Again, www.usa.theknowledgebook.net. The Turkish World Brotherhood Union website is www.dkb-mevlana-org-tr. And the Call to Friendship website is www.calltofriendship.org. And actually, it's a very interesting website, gives you more detail as to what is going on and what has been happening as far as our June meetings and joint and World Unification in Turkey for giving Omega conferences. And again, please email me or contact me either directly by phone or please leave a message or the fact that you have called, and either email or text or call for any questions you may have about the topic that we have covered today or any other programs that I've had before. And I do apologize for being absent for a while. I've had technical difficulties in terms of getting a connection that allows giving these talks without interruption and the voice being carried well. So finally, I have a connection that is actually working, and I'm back to being able to give these talks on a monthly basis. Okay, so today we are talking about giving thanks because it is the season of giving thanks, of being grateful for the gifts that we've been given. So how did this come about in the United States? And what is the purpose behind all this? What are the effects of all this? And what does the Knowledge Book have to say about giving thanks? Although there are many holidays in the United States that we celebrate, however, by all accounts, irrefutably, the most popular one is Thanksgiving. And of course, we all know that Thanksgiving is on the fourth Thursday of every November. And it is the most popular, and at the same time, because of that, it is the most traveled holiday, because all the family members, wherever they may be, and they may be separated sometimes by thousands of miles, they come together, whether by plane, by car, by rail, whatever method they use to get together, they travel, and in order to reunite and enjoy each other's company, and of course, the feast. And this becomes the beginning of the holiday season in the United States, the official grand opening. So how did Thanksgiving come about in the United States? The story goes that Plymouth colonists and Native Americans shared an autumn harvest feast, and that is now acknowledged as being the first Thanksgiving celebration in the colonies. Over time, this holiday had become the national holiday that it is now. So how did they get here? Basically, in September of 1620, a small ship called the Mayflower left Plymouth, England. The ship carried about 102 passengers, and those passengers were religious separatists. They were people who could not worship the way they wanted to worship in the UK, in England, so they went to find a place where they could freely practice what they believed in at that time. But besides the religious separatists who wanted to practice their own religion, there also came aboard those individuals who were adventurers, those individuals who were allured by the prosperity and land ownership in the New World. So this travel that they did, it took them 66 days of very uncomfortable crossing of the Atlantic. And they landed finally after 66 days of being seasick and sick. They landed near the tip of Cape Cod. Now they were actually targeting to land at the mouth of the Hudson River, which is currently where New York is, New York City. So this is what their destination was. However, I guess they didn't have GPS. They landed 266 miles off course, or 428 kilometers off course. And a month later, they were able to cross Massachusetts Bay, and they finally went to the mainland. And the Pilgrims, as now we call them, they established a village at Plymouth. Now, even though they arrived at the mainland, most of the colonists remained on board the ship throughout the first winter. But after the winter was finished, it turns out that only about half of the original passengers and crew survived on that boat. And those are the people who, in March of the first spring, they moved ashore and they received, I mean, can you imagine coming on shore, coming across this miles and miles of ocean to a strange land, and then when they come on shore, they get a visit from an Abenaki Native American who was able to talk to them in English. And afterwards, a few days later, he came with Squanto, and Squanto was a member of the Pawtuxet tribe who previously had lived in London as well, so he learned English too. And he came back to his homeland, back to America, for an exploratory expedition. Sorry. So Squanto was instrumental in many ways and very generous in many ways to the Pilgrims, because those Pilgrims were actually very weak and underfed, malnourished. So he taught them how to cultivate corn, how to extract sap from maple trees, because they only had a limited amount of sugar on board. They were able to learn how to catch fish in the rivers. And a lot of importance is also placed on this, is that they were taught to make sure they didn't eat any poisonous plants. Because if new country, new land, it's already been experimented by the locals as to what is edible and what is not edible. So he was very generous. Squanto was very generous in teaching the Pilgrims how to survive on their own in the new land. Not only that, but he was able to get an agreement going, an alliance going between the Pilgrims and the Wompanoag, which was a local Native American tribe. And this agreement, this alliance lasted for 50 years. Basically, that alliance was that if anyone would attack the Pilgrims, the Native Americans would come in and, fight with the Pilgrims, and the other way around, where the Pilgrims would also come in and support and fight with the Native Americans in case they were attacked. So this alliance lasted for more than 50 years. Now, there was a Pilgrim called Edward Winslow, and he was a chronicler. He was a historian. And this is what he wrote about that day, about the first Thanksgiving, quote, "Our harvest being gone in, our governor sent 4 men unfowling, that so we might after a special manner rejoice together. After we had gathered the fruits of our labors, amongst other recreations, we exercised our arms, many of the Indians coming amongst us, and amongst the rest of their greatest king, Massasoit, with some 90 men, whom for 3 days we entertained and feasted. And although it be not always so plentiful as it was at this time with us, yet by the goodness of God we were so far from want that we often wished to partake of our plenty." End quote. Now, the actual menu was not specified. We know that he went hunting and hunting for fowl, so he could have gotten some geese or duck or something, but we're not sure at all that they had turkey. Now, during the American Revolution, the Continental Congress designated 1 or more days of Thanksgiving a year. And in 1789, George Washington issued the first Thanksgiving proclamation by the national government of the United States. And this is where he called upon Americans to express their gratitude for the happy conclusion to the country's War of Independence and the successful ratification of the U.S. Constitution. So gratitude was in place, and 2 other presidents following Washington's lead, John Adams and James Madison, also designated days of thanks during their presidencies. So this was a beginning of the first of the Thanksgiving holiday as we know it. However, our gratitude actually is extending to the most to a woman. Now, the New York actually became the first of several states to adopt an official annual Thanksgiving holiday, but it was not held on the same day, and each state had a different day that was set aside for Thanksgiving. In 1827, there was an magazine editor and prolific writer, Sarah Josepha Hale. She launched a campaign so that Thanksgiving become a national holiday and celebrated on the same day. So it took her 36 years to accomplish this feat, and she campaigned long and hard by publishing many editorials and sending many letters to governors, senators, presidents, and other politicians. And because of this, she actually earned her nickname of Mother of Thanksgiving. So in case anyone thinks that one person cannot make a difference, one person can make a tremendous difference and turn things around. And we have Thanksgiving today because of her campaigning and her efforts. And finally, in 1863, the idea took hold during the Civil War, where Sarah Josepha Hale's pleas were heard, and Abraham Lincoln took the idea and proclaimed Thanksgiving Day as a national holiday. And during this time, Lincoln entreated all Americans, quote, to heal the wounds of the nation, end quote. He scheduled Thanksgiving to be held on the final Thursday in November, and it was celebrated on the final Thursday of November from 1863 to 1939, when Franklin Delano Roosevelt moved in and moved the holiday to the 3rd Thursday. His idea was, by moving the holiday, to stimulate the economy to end the Great Depression. Well, there are good ideas that go over big, and there are ideas that don't go over so big. So Franklin D. Roosevelt plan was actually met with great resistance and opposition. And in 1941, he had to go back and sign a new bill to make Thanksgiving again the 4th Thursday in November. And this is how we've been celebrating Thanksgiving ever since. No one has thought of going to any other day except that day since that time back in 1941. And as you can be seen, the holiday actually started as a religious holiday. But over the years, the religious aspect kind of fell away. And right now the focus is on being with family and friends, cooking and sharing a bountiful meal, watching a football game, and either being in or watching the parade. Now, we don't know how the turkey became the center point symbol of Thanksgiving, because it certainly was not listed on the menu of the first Thanksgiving. All we have is a reference of fowling, which means, just going hunting for some kind of flying game. But somehow the turkey wound up being the center point and the center point of the menu for Thanksgiving. The other thing is that eventually, over time, slowly, the turkey is being replaced by a vegetarian meal surrounded by the usual foods like stuffing, mashed potatoes, sweet potatoes with marshmallow topping, cranberry sauce, green bean casserole, collard greens, and of course, pumpkin pie. And the other tradition besides the parade watching and football watching on TV or in person on the parade grounds, people get together and collect food, and they volunteer to serve Thanksgiving dinner in soup kitchens so that everyone can share in the Thanksgiving feast. And this, of course, has become a standard in the United States communities. Another part that's become standard during Thanksgiving is the Thanksgiving Day Parade. And this is done across the United States. However, there is a special parade, the biggest parade in the United States. And this is the one that's been put together by the Macy's department store since 1924. And this, of course, is the largest and the most popular of the parades. The route of the parade itself is 2.5 miles, 2.5 miles, which is a little over 4 kilometers. And the streets become lined with 2 to 3 million spectators and a very large television audience. So watching the parade has become a tradition during the Thanksgiving holiday. And the actual highlights of the parade are marching bands, performers, elaborate floats, and giant balloons shaped like cartoon characters. But even though Thanksgiving with the turkey and the Pilgrims and the Native Americans being the first Thanksgiving that's celebrated and taught in history books, however, there are some scholars that are saying that, well, that was not the first feast. And the Plymouth Rock one was not the first Thanksgiving in the United States, because there are at least 2 occasions where a Thanksgiving meal was held predating Plymouth Rock. So the first Thanksgiving meal was back in 1565, when the Spanish explorer Pedro Menendez Davil invited members of the local Timucua tribe to a dinner in St. Augustine, Florida. And the second one was on December the 4th, 1619, when 38 British settlers reached what was known as Berkeley Hundred on the banks of the James River in Virginia. And this is where they read a proclamation designating the date as a day of thanksgiving to Almighty God. So that we have at least 2 historically held dinners, feasts that predated the Plymouth Thanksgiving celebration up north. But it is still the story of Thanksgiving, that it was started in Plymouth with the Pilgrims and the Native Americans. So the actual celebration of the harvest, the actual celebration of bounty and thankfulness and Thanksgiving spans many cultures, many continents, and many, many, many years. This is not a new celebration. This is not something that originated with the Pilgrims and Native Americans. So in ancient times, the Egyptians, the Greeks, and the Romans feasted on and paid tribute to their gods after the fall harvest. And Thanksgiving also looks like and has a strong resemblance to the ancient Jewish harvest festival of Sukkot. Finally, historians have noted that Native Americans had a rich tradition of commemorating the fall harvest and feasting and merrymaking long before Europeans set foot on their shores. So the Native Americans had already a rich tradition of celebrating the harvest and being thankful for the harvest and for the plenty that they had, and they were successful in getting food for the rest of the year. So as far as Native American tradition is concerned, they held those feasts at different times. And in the Pacific North, on the coast, when the salmon started to come in, that's when these Native Americans celebrated a feast of Thanksgiving. And this was done by all the tribes that were able to secure the fish from inlets or rivers. There's also a ceremony or a celebration called Farthers, and this actually was the ripening of what happened when the acorns ripened and other fruits was also ripening at the same time. So this is what was celebrated. So when the maize or the corn was maturing, that was the occasion for tribal festivities. And the Native Americans, the Creeks, held their 8-day ceremony known as the busk, when new corn was eaten, new fire was kindled, new garments were worn, and all past enmities were forgiven. Now in November, and this has got to do with the Eskimos, when the Eskimos had gathered their winter store, they also held a feast, at which time they exchanged gifts. And this had the side effect, this had the effect of building up a temporary relationship between the giver and the taker. And this basically started to spread good feeling and fellowship between humans, between Eskimo tribes and members. And also during the full moon of December, the Eskimo held a feast to which the bladders of animals killed during the year were brought. So they had their own specific way of celebrating, again, giving thanks and establishing peace and harmony through good feeling and fellowship. Now the Iroquois had a feast, and the purpose of this was to make sure that their medicine stayed alive and vibrant. Religious ceremonies to ensure fruitfulness took place at the planting of the maize, at which time a feast was held. Now, this is some of the information that we were able to gather about Thanksgiving in the United States and the Native peoples who were living and celebrating these feasts in America. But what about the rest of the world? Now, sometimes it is forgotten that before the Pilgrims came to the US and landed in Plymouth or landed on Cape Cod and settled in Plymouth, those individuals who were searching for religious freedom first went to the Netherlands, and they lived in a city called Leiden. So they spent about 40% of those people spent the years 1609 to 1620 in the city of Leiden. So some people think that the first Thanksgiving held by the Pilgrims was actually inspired by the Leiden's annual commemoration of the breaking of the Spanish siege in 1574. So in any case, the people of today's Leiden also continue to celebrate their ties with the Mayflower's passengers by holding a non-denominational church services on the fourth Thursday of November. So they unify with the United States on the same day to celebrate a feast of Thanksgiving, a non-denominational feast and services. Another place that is holding Thanksgiving, and again, this time, the origin of which is the United States, is on the remote island in the Pacific Ocean, which was a British penal colony and is currently Australian territory. So this is kind of an unlikely place for holiday celebration that has American roots, because, in fact, its Thanksgiving tradition dates back to the mid-1890s. And this was started by American trader Isaac Robinson because he wanted to put on an American-style Thanksgiving service in the All Saints Church in Kingston in order to attract some visiting American whalers to the celebration. So he's trying to practice some good business PR. So he makes a feast and invites the whalers to the celebration. And apparently his plan worked. And parishioners on the island, otherwise best known for its namesake pine tree or the Norfolk pine, continue to celebrate the holiday today. And what they do is they bring fruits, vegetables, and corn stalks to decorate the church and sing American hymns on the last Wednesday of November each year. So it's still the fourth week, but it's now Wednesday instead of Thursday. In Liberia, in the 1880s, their government passed an act declaring the first Thursday of November as National Thanksgiving Day. And today it's a largely Christian holiday. Churches auction off baskets filled with local fruits like papayas and mangoes. And after their services, the local families feast on the bounty. And instead of turkey and pumpkin, Liberia's Thanksgiving tables boast items like spicy roast chicken and mashed cassavas, and live music and dancing are part of the Thanksgiving tradition. So celebration is good time is held by all. Germany has a feast in October called Untitled Fest, or the Harvest Thanksgiving Festival, which actually combines religious aspects with harvest dinners and parades. So here we have another country that has parades with wheelbarrows of fruits and bounty. Now, during this typical Erntedank Fest, the celebrants may carry an Erntenkroon or harvest crown of grains, fruit, and flowers to the church in a solemn procession, and a feast on such hearty fare as fattened up chickens and roosters. Now, in Thailand, there's a wild celebration in a sense, because what they do is hold water buffalo racing as this highlight. We have football games, they have water buffalo racing. So there are farmers that are daredevils, if I could say, and they celebrate Thailand's rice harvest celebration in October. So the jockeys ride their buffaloes at breakneck speed along the dirt track during the annual event in Chonburi province. Kind of reminds one of the running of the bulls in Spain. Now, in the Czech Republic, they are holding a celebration in a sense, because where in previous celebrations we were talking about harvesting first and celebrating later, in the Czech Republic in South Moravian region, the people just don't sit around the table toasting the summer harvest. They actually go out there, they dress in national full costume, and they go out there and actually do the harvesting of the grains and the produce of the land in the Czech Republic. And in South Korea, they have an equivalent of Thanksgiving, which is called Chuseok. And it's held over 3 days in September or October. And this is a time, again, when families get together, they eat rice cakes, they pay respects to dead relatives, and watch live wrestling matches. The best part, however, at least for us looking on, is getting dressed up in the traditional hanbok costume, which are very colorful. India has a Pongal, which is a 4-day harvest festival celebrated in January by Tamils. And this is done in India and Sri Lanka, Malaysia, and other places. The Pongal harvest gives thanks to nature for its beauty and bounty, and it celebrates cattle, family, and various Hindu gods. Hindu devotees throw out old clothes, paint their cows in bright colors, and make offerings to the gods to thank them for a good harvest. Now, the main tradition in this holiday is heating fresh milk in a clay pot outdoors and allowing it to boil over. So in a land where you have plenty, you can boil milk over and waste part of it because you have more than plenty to go around, and you have gratitude for that. In China is a celebration called Chiang Chui, and this is a 3-day harvest festival. And this is when it was believed that the moon was born. Now, Chiang Chui feast features roasted pigs and the first fruits of the harvest, and they have a very special round yellow moon cakes. Now, these are the highlight of the Mid-Autumn Festival, and that they celebrate in September or early October. And these pastries have a very dense, rich filling made either from red bean or lotus seed paste and an egg. So I guess this could be similar to the Thanksgiving pumpkin pie. It has a very rich, and it's richer than pumpkin pie actually, as far as the density is concerned, but it is both of them are good if you like. Now in Argentina, this is centered around the grape harvest in Mendoza. And now Mendoza is one of the most famous winemaking provinces in Argentina, and it is the most popular celebration in the Mendoza province. It lasts for 10 days, and they celebrate wine, the winemakers, and wine culture. The locals celebrate this during March harvest, or vendimia in Spanish, with a spectacular street parade featuring grape harvest queens from the various districts and stage show in the capital city. Israel, as we mentioned before, they have an autumn harvest called Sukkot, called the Feast of the Tabernacles, and this feast lasts for 8 days. And this basically is a reminder to the people who are living currently of the hardships suffered by Moses and the Israelites when they wandered in the desert for 40 years before they actually arrived at their home. Vietnam is also very interesting because their Mid-Autumn Festival, which also marks the end of the country's harvest, is a time when children run around wearing amazing paper mache and plastic masks, and they get presents from their relatives. So if we compare this to the United States culture, it's a mashup of Christmas and Halloween. You get presents and you get to wear masks and you run around having a good time. Now, England, the Harvest Festival of Thanksgiving is a celebration of the harvest and food grown on the land in the United Kingdom. And it is about giving thanks for successful crop yield over the year as winter starts to approach. Now, in Britain, this has been going on since pagan times. And the celebrations on this day in England usually include singing of hymns, praying, and decorating churches with baskets of fruit and food in the festival known as Harvest Festival or Harvest Home or Harvest Thanksgiving or Harvest Festival of Thanksgiving. So same thing, different names in different regions, all celebrating and giving thanks over long time. Now, we've covered many of the Thanksgiving and harvest celebrations around the world where people come together and give thanks in unity. They are unified in this. But there have been studies made where scientists basically figure out what the effects are of having this attitude of Thanksgiving and gratitude. So they found that having Thanksgiving or having gratitude and giving thanks, the positive impacts are gratitude has an effect on the brain that is linked to life satisfaction and improved well-being. Gratitude reduces blood pressure and anxiety. Gratitude minimizes negative habits, patterns of thinking and feeling. Gratitude can bring us to appreciate each new day as unique, like a new flower opening. And gratitude prevents worry and frustration by allowing us to focus what is positive and the present. So it's always a good idea before we go to sleep to have a list of things that we are grateful for that day. And when we take a larger picture of what is going on, a gathering as a family and friends is a microcosm of the macrocosm. The family unit is our training ground for learning love, acceptance, tolerance, caring for others. And the family is the spark that triggers our thoughts and our brain processes to actually work. If it were not for our family and the influence of the family, we will not be able to think, we would not be able to know what it is that we need to do and how to do it. And when we gather as a group with the same intention and with the same basis of love, we are then on the same coordinate and in the same magnetic field. So everyone who comes together during a Thanksgiving meal and they are together, they're on the same coordinate and the same magnetic field, which means they are unified in that field. So according to the knowledge book in fascicle 47, quote, I have given you mothers, fathers, children. You cannot become aware of the love of Allah without them. I have given you spouses and lovers of the opposite sex. You cannot become aware of true love without them, end quote. Now, what effect does that have on everyone else? What is actually going on? What is going on is a world unification. Everyone in each nation who celebrates a Thanksgiving holiday is therefore unified in the same magnetic field and are on the same coordinate. When every nation gathers for the same Thanksgiving day, then the world will be unified in the same magnetic field and the same frequency. And to give you a piece of good news, this world unification has already started, because on the last Sunday of every month, solar teachers who are on the path of the knowledge book across the world gather for a meal of friendship and love. Basically, everyone cooks a dish and they gather together at a particular time on a Sunday. They share their food with each other with an attitude of love and friendship. And then this feeling, this atmosphere, this coordinate, this magnetic field is then reflected to the entire country, their own country. In fascicle 424, it reminds us, quote, do not be surprised at true love. Do not presume it does not exist. That which introduces you to yourself is this. That which makes you love yourself is this. Unless the hand of true love peels your outer skin, you cannot break your shell. You cannot be in the truth. You cannot attain heavens, end quote. In fascicle 1, quote, 18, in gardens in which seeds of love are sown, flowers that have never been seen bloom. 19, your third eye is the secret that gives the aroma to those flowers. Provided that you gain this power of yours, you solve all the secrets, end quote. And then further, in fascicle 39, it states, quote, a person who has genuine consciousness should think of others rather than himself, herself. This is what is meant by altruism, and it is not gained easily. This is a matter of evolution. Respect of a human for another human on this path is the most sacred of worships. Grasping a truth does not mean understanding the knowledge read. It means receiving lessons from the knowledge read and to become verdant by their frequencies. A person who becomes verdant will one day bloom into beautiful flowers, end quote. And what is universal unification? From the glossary of the knowledge book, it states, the goal of the golden age, gathering of the totality under one roof. So step by step, celebration by celebration, one family unit unified with another family unit throughout that country, throughout the world. And we are gathering to become one huge family, and we are becoming one step at a time. Well, it's been nice talking to you all today. And being back feels very good. And I do appreciate the opportunity to be able to share this knowledge with you of different topics in the world and how that is viewed by the knowledge book and unified with the knowledge book knowledge. So as always, if you have any topics you would like us to cover, then please call or text me with those topics. If you have any questions, please do call or text me or email me with those questions. I'll be happy to respond to them. Please know that there are solar teachers in the United States who do go around and travel to give conferences, introductory conference of the knowledge book. And please look at the knowledge book website for the United States for the contact people for those conferences. And they also have on the website, for the United States website, they have listings of when they will be appearing in some kind of either event or expo or some kind of gathering to present information about the knowledge book and give out the 1st, the 25th, and the 20th chapter of the knowledge book. We do give free of charge and without any obligation. There are no strings attached. We do give out 3 chapters of the knowledge book. The 1st, the 20th, and the 25th fascicule are given as an introduction. Now, the knowledge book is an energy book. It is an evolution book. It is a book that gives us and fills in the missing pieces of energy and frequency that we don't have, and actually slowly over time, gradually brings us from the 18th evolution dimension to the 72nd, from the 18th evolution dimension to the 19th evolution dimension, and it brings us to unification and a totality. So I'm looking forward to speaking with you again next month on the 4th Tuesday of every month, 7 o'clock Eastern Time, 4 o'clock Pacific Time, when again we'll be talking about a different topic and its integration with the knowledge book. So please remember that, as the knowledge book tells us, and Mrs. Chirac often reminds us, humanity's verdict is in humanity's hand. We have the power to decide what the course of our world is. And just as Ms. Hale was able to achieve over 36 years the establishment of Thanksgiving as a national holiday, we also can establish peace, harmony, and a world without wars. Thank you. See you next time.
You've been listening to Knowledge Book Radio with Marge Potasic. Marge was led to the Knowledge Book, a gift to humanity, at its time of transition to the Golden Age that provides the truth, energies, and knowledge. Now, she shares information from and answers questions about the Knowledge Book with you the 4th Tuesday each month at 4 p.m. Pacific, 7 p.m. Eastern on TransformationTalkRadio.com. For more information, visit usa.theknowledgebook.net and tune in next time for another amazing show on Knowledge Book Radio.